Hello, music fans. I want to talk to you about the albums that I'm planning on listening to in January 2024. So I got my new release calendar that I've made in front of me, and I just want to walk you through them in case any of these are of interest to you. If you're a fan of progressive metal, progressive rock, then you'll probably like a lot of the stuff that I have on this list. So let's start right off with January 3rd. There's a release from Notochord called Aegis. I've actually listened to this one already. This is the one on the list that I've heard already. This is the debut album by this American band. It's progressive post-metal with progressive rock, deathcore, and avant-garde metal influences. This band features two members who used to be in the Contortionists, which is a band I absolutely love. It features the drummer from Aviations as well, another band that I love. And I listened to the early release single before the album came out, and it reminded me a lot of early Contortionist music, but it sounded even more experimental and dissonant. The whole album is only 22 minutes long and is 7 tracks, so it's more like an EP in length. But I think they're referring to it as their debut album. It's very good. Listen if that sounds interesting to you. Next up, I have Karfagen with Messages from Afar, Second Nature. This is the 18th album by this Ukrainian progressive rock band, and it's very symphonic. It's got art rock and new age influences, very keyboard heavy. I think it's their 18th album. They are very prolific, so it's hard to keep count. They released 3 albums in 2023, and I really enjoyed them. I thought they were all excellent. And then on January 6th, we have Francis Dunnery's It Bites releasing Return to Natural. Now, I know It Bites is a band who's released a bunch of albums, but I'm not sure if Francis Dunnery's its version of It Bites has ever released anything before. This might be a debut for that particular offshoot of this band. And this is progressive rock with art rock and pop influences. Francis Dunnery has been out of It Bites since 1990, but he's made his own version of the band here, I guess. Next up, I have January 12th, which features 4 releases that I'm planning to check out. First one's Neal Morse and the Restoration Joseph Part 2, which is a progressive rock opera with musical theater influences. And it's hard to count how many albums he's made because he's been in Spock's Beard and Transatlantic. He has a project called the Neal Morse Band. He released 2 albums under a project called D. Virgilio Morse and Jennings. He also has many solo albums in different styles. Some are straightforward singer-songwriter albums, some are prog albums, some are Christian worship music, the latter of which I'm not interested in personally. But this one's kind of more prog, but also musical theater. And then on the same day, Alluvial is releasing an EP called Death is But a Door. This is technical atmospheric death metal with progressive gent and deathcore influences. I thought their second album from 2021, Sarcoma, was very good, so I'm looking forward to this. This band has amazing guitar playing from Wes Haunch, who played with the Faceless and Black Crown Initiate, both bands that I love. They have brutal growling vocals, but also some clean singing. Bring Me the Horizon is also releasing an album on the same day called Posthuman Next Gen. Now, this is more pop rock at this point. They used to be metalcore, deathcore, but they've become a lot more accessible now. This is the 7th album by this band from the UK. I'm not a big fan of theirs, but they're a big name, so I'm going to check them out. I have seen them live before. They were okay, but Thrice opened up for them, and Thrice is the reason I was there, so they stole the show for me. I prefer Bring Me the Horizon's earlier, heavier deathcore and metalcore sound over the pop sound that they moved towards. But it sounds like this album will still feature some screaming and breakdowns, but there's also a lot of singing and pop and electronic parts. And lastly, for January 12th, we have, I'm assuming that's pronounced Ovrfwrd. I don't know how to pronounce that band name. Ovrfwrd. And their album, There Are No Ordinary Moments. It's the 5th album by this band from the US. It's instrumental progressive rock with jazz fusion. I never listened to them before, but I heard an early track and it sounded cool, so I added them to the list. On January 17th, Nemophilia is releasing Evolve. This is the third album by this band from Japan. It's metalcore with heavy metal, new metal, groove metal, and progressive metal influences. I've never listened to them before either, but I heard an early release track. It also sounded cool. Looks like it's an all-female band as well, so that's also cool. It sounds a bit like a more hardcore version of baby metal because it definitely has that Japanese pop influence as well, but it's still very metal. And now let's get to January 19th. We've got releases from Green Day, a big name here, releasing their album Saviors, 14th album by this American pop punk band that has some alternative rock influences. While I don't like all their albums, I think their album American Idiot is excellent, and several others that they made are good. I keep listening to everything they put out just to see if they can ever match the excellent quality from American Idiot. And then we have Omar Rodrigues-Lopez releasing Is It the Clouds? This will be the 49th album by this prolific American guitar player who's well known for being the guitar player in the Mars Volta. I think this will be progressive rock, but it's hard to say with him because he's released so much music and he's kind of a shapeshifter in terms of the styles that he plays. It's crazy how many albums he's made. I'm not sure I'll ever have time to listen to his whole discography, but I love his work with the Mars Volta. He's a great guitarist. I've liked a lot of the solo work that I've heard from him too. Also on the same day, Karfagen is releasing another album, Messages from Afar, the Working Tapes. So probably their 19th album. I talked about them earlier. They're from the Ukraine, really prolific. I'm looking forward to hearing it. And also on January 19th, Advocacy is releasing their debut album, The Path of Decoherence. They're a band from Denmark, and I'm excited to hear another progressive metal debut album. From the sounds of the tracks that were released ahead of time, I think this has potential to be an excellent album. And Sgaile, I don't know how to pronounce that band either, Sgaile, is releasing Traverse the Bealach. A lot of words that are hard to pronounce in this list here. This is the second album by this band from the UK. It's progressive post-metal with avant-garde, black metal, and doom metal influences. And I've never listened to them before, but heard an early track. It sounded cool, so added it to the list. And the last one for January 19th is MesaVerde with All Is Well. This is the second album by this Norwegian progressive rock band that has a lot of indie rock influences. It's another one that I've never checked out before, but I listened to one early release track from the album and it sounded cool. Their Bandcamp describes their sound as a combination of Yes, 80s King Crimson, XTC, Led Zeppelin, The Buggles, and Tame Impala. So that sounds accurate to me from what I heard. So check it out if that sounds good to you. Now let's talk about January 26th, the big release day of the month. It has my most anticipated album of the month because I love everything this band has ever done. It's Caligula's Horse with Charcoal Grace. This is the sixth album by this band from Australia, a progressive metal band. Definitely check it out if you're gonna check out anything on this list. This is the one. And on the same day, The Smile is releasing Wall of Eyes. It's the second album by this UK art rock band. It has post-punk, electronic, alternative, experimental, and progressive rock influences. This band features Tom York and Johnny Greenwood from Radiohead, so check it out if you're a fan of them. And then all the following bands in here I've never listened to before other than just the early release singles from these albums. So I'm going to rapid fire through them. Mortem is releasing Old Eyes, New Heart, the eighth album by this Norwegian band, progressive metal with alternative, gothic, doom, and avant-garde metal influences. So all these bands here, I listened to the early single and it got me interested. Exocrine is releasing Legend, the sixth album by this French band. It's progressive technical death metal. Advocacy is releasing Lightless, the debut album by this Australian progressive metal band. It's instrumental with tech death and black metal influences. The Stage of Dreams is releasing The Duality Conflict, the first album by this progressive power metal band from the US. The Pneumatic Transit is releasing Forbidden Trinkets, the fifth album by this American progressive rock band that has jazz fusion, alternative, and ambient influences. Mountain Color is releasing Chronicle 2 Hypergenesis, the second album by this band from the UK, with progressive post-metal with psychedelic rock influences. And A Sudden Burst of Color is releasing Galvanized, the first album from this band. I think they're a Scottish band. It's kind of instrumental post-rock with progressive ambient and electronic influences. And then the last album of the 24 albums that I plan to check out in January, and I'll probably end up checking out more if people leave comments down below in this video. Let me know if there's anything great that I'm missing. The last one is Albion with their album Lake Songs of Elbid, the debut album by this UK progressive metal band. It's progressive folk metal with progressive rock and Celtic influences. Hopefully you found some stuff on this list that is appealing to you and that you end up checking it out. Let me know what you think of things on this list when you listen to them. Let me know if you like them. Leave some stuff down in the comments. Give this video a like if you found something new in here that you're going to listen to. Comment down below if there's anything else that you're listening to in January that is not on my list. And stay tuned for the next video. Until next time, peace out.